Introduction. Maya sits across from Liam at a small table in a cozy Italian restaurant. The lighting is soft, and the smell of fresh bread fills the air. To anyone walking by, they look like the perfect couple. Maya is smiling. Her hair is tucked behind her ear, and she is nodding as Liam tells a story about his day. On the outside, everything is peaceful. It looks like a scene from a movie about a happy, growing love. But inside Maya's head, a storm is raging. 4 hours ago, she sent Liam a long text about her day. He replied with 2 words, "Sounds good." Now, as she watches him eat his pasta, those 2 words are spinning around her mind like a broken record. Does he think I talk too much? Is he bored of me? Did I do something wrong? She is watching the way his eyes move, looking for a sign that he is about to break up with her. She isn't eating her food. She is too busy being a detective, searching for a crime that hasn't even happened. This is the hidden reality for millions of people. We are physically present in our lives, but our minds are miles away, trapped in a loop of what-ifs. We look calm on the surface, but underneath we are exhausted by our own thoughts. We are tired of the mental gymnastics it takes to survive a single date or a quiet evening. We want to feel safe, but our brains keep telling us that danger is just around the corner. The invisible third party. In every modern relationship, there is often an invisible third party. It isn't a person, but a process. It is the overactive mind. This mind acts like a bodyguard that refuses to go off duty. It scans every text for a hidden meaning. It analyzes the tone of a partner's voice, like a scientist looking for a virus. It turns a brief silence into a sign of certain doom. Overthinking is not just thinking too much. It is a pattern of behavior that blocks true connection. When you are busy interpreting your partner's micro-expressions, you aren't actually with your partner. You are with your fears. You are living in what we call the Hall of Mirrors. Imagine walking into a room filled with mirrors. Everywhere you turn, you see a version of yourself. But these mirrors are warped. One makes you look small and weak. Another makes your partner look cold and distant. In this hall, one small fear reflects off another until the room is crowded with shadows. You can't see the exit because you are too busy looking at the distortions. This book is about how to walk out of that room. It is about how to shatter those mirrors and find the anchor. An anchor is something that holds you steady when the waves of doubt start to rise. It is the ability to see facts instead of fears. It is the power to stay grounded in the present moment, even when your mind wants to fly into a catastrophic future. The cost of the search. If you are reading this, you probably know the feeling of text message paralysis. You spend 20 minutes writing a 3-word response because you don't want to seem too eager, but you also don't want to seem cold. You know the post-date deconstruction, where you replay every second of the night in your head, looking for the exact moment you might have said something stupid. This constant searching comes at a high price. It drains your energy. It makes you feel like you are walking on eggshells in your own heart. Most importantly, it keeps you from experiencing authentic intimacy. Intimacy requires you to be seen as you are. But if you are always performing or protecting yourself, your partner never gets to see the real you. They only see the version of you that is trying not to mess up. You might feel like your brain is broken. You might think that being anxious is just who you are. You might worry that you will eventually drive away everyone you love because you need too much reassurance. I want to tell you right now, you are not broken. Your brain is doing exactly what it was designed to do. It is trying to keep you safe from rejection. The problem is that it's using an old, outdated map to navigate a modern world. You are using survival tools to handle a romance. It's like trying to use a hammer to fix a computer. It's the wrong tool for the job and it's causing damage. From detective to secure connector. The journey we are starting together has a very specific goal. We are going to move you from being a relationship detective to becoming a secure connector. A relationship detective is always looking for clues. They are hyper-vigilant. They believe that if they just think hard enough, they can predict the future and prevent pain. But the detective is never at peace. Even when they find proof that things are okay, they immediately start looking for the next threat. A secure connector is different. They know how to tell the difference between a feeling and a fact. They can communicate their needs without feeling ashamed. They don't need a guarantee that everything will work out perfectly, because they trust their own ability to handle whatever happens. They have found the anchor. This transformation is possible for anyone. It doesn't matter how many failed relationships you have had. It doesn't matter how many times you have stayed up until 3 a.m. crying over a late reply. You can rewire the way you relate to others. The ideas in this book are based on decades of psychological research and timeless wisdom. We will look at the work of Mary Ainsworth, a famous scientist who discovered why some of us feel so much attachment hunger while others pull away. We will also look at the words of Marcus Aurelius, a Roman emperor who lived 2,000 years ago. He was a master of the mind who taught that we are not disturbed by things, but by our opinions about things. By combining modern science with ancient grit, we can build a bridge out of the Hall of Mirrors. Meet Maya. To see how this works in the real world, we are going to follow the story of Maya. Maya is 32 years old and works as a UX designer. Her job is to look at websites and apps and find every single thing that could go wrong. She is paid to be a professional what-if thinker. She is smart, successful, and kind. But in her dating life, her professional skills have become her greatest enemy. She has been dating Liam for 6 months. Liam is a good man. He's a high school teacher who loves old movies and makes a great lasagna. He is steady and honest. On paper, this is exactly what Maya has always wanted. But Maya's mind won't let her enjoy it. When Liam doesn't text her back for a few hours, Maya's brain doesn't think, he's probably busy at work. Instead, it thinks, he's realizing he can do better than me. He's pulling away. I should probably pull away first, so it doesn't hurt as much. Maya lives in a state of constant self-doubt. She spends her lunch breaks scrolling through old messages, looking for signs of a shift in his tone. She has emergency calls with her friends to ask them what they think his hum meant. She is exhausted. She loves Liam, but she is starting to resent him because she feels like his behavior is the remote control for her happiness. Maya's story is not unique. It is the story of anyone who has ever felt like their brain was a bad neighborhood they were forced to live in. As we move through these chapters, we will watch Maya learn how to use the tools in this book. We will see her fail, try again, and eventually find her footing. The path ahead. The road to a quiet mind is not a straight line, but it is a clear one. We will start by going back to the beginning. We will find out where the noise in your head comes from. We will look at how your early life created a blueprint for how you love today. Understanding this blueprint is the first step to changing it. Next, we will look at the biology of your brain. You will learn why your heart beats fast during a small argument, and why your mind goes blank when you try to talk about your feelings. You will learn how to calm your nervous system so you can think clearly again. We will tackle the gap, that scary space of silence when your partner isn't around or isn't talking. You will learn how to fill that space with peace instead of panic. We will talk about how to reclaim your mental real estate so that your relationship is a part of your life, not the entire thing. Finally, we will work on communication and trust. You will learn how to say what you mean without attacking or defending. You will learn how to build trust that doesn't depend on a safety net of constant reassurance. By the time you reach the end of this book, you won't just have a list of tips. You will have a new way of being. You will be able to sit at that restaurant table, look at the person across from you, and simply enjoy the meal. You will be able to see a sounds good text and believe that things actually are good. The Hall of Mirrors is a lonely place to live. It is time to step out into the light. It is time to stop being a detective and start being a partner. The anchor is waiting. Let's begin. Chapter 1: Identifying the root of the noise. Maya sat in the driver's seat of her car, the engine idling quietly. Outside, the world was peaceful. A golden sunset hit the trees, and a neighbor was slowly walking their dog down the sidewalk. It was a Tuesday evening, the kind of evening that should have felt like a deep breath. Maya had just finished a long day of designing apps, and she was looking forward to seeing Liam for dinner. She picked up her phone to check the time. There was a notification. She had sent Liam a text 20 minutes ago. "I'm leaving work now. So excited for that pasta place. See you soon?" Liam's reply was 3 words long. "Sounds good, see ya." Maya stared at the screen. The golden light outside didn't seem so bright anymore. She read the message again. Then she read it a third time. She noticed there was no heart emoji. There wasn't even an exclamation point. "Sounds good" felt cold. "See ya" felt dismissive. In her mind, the quiet of the car was suddenly replaced by a loud buzzing noise. It was the sound of her brain starting to spin. She wondered if he was annoyed that she had picked the pasta place. Maybe he was tired of her being so excited all the time. Or maybe she thought his feelings were starting to fade. She spent the next 10 minutes sitting in her driveway, rewriting a reply she never sent. She was looking for a sign, a clue, or a secret meaning in a simple text message. This was the start of the noise. This was the moment a small observation turned into a big obsession. The night the world ended. On the night of October 30th, 1938, millions of people across America were sitting in their living rooms, much like Maya in her car. It was a quiet Sunday night. Families were gathered around their large wooden radios. The house was warm, the lights were low, and for most people the biggest worry was the work week starting the next morning. At 8 p.m., a program began on the CBS radio network. A voice announced that they were listening to the Mercury Theater on the air. Then, the sound of a ballroom orchestra filled the rooms. It was pleasant, boring music. Most people probably started to zone out. But then, the music stopped abruptly. A news announcer broke in. He sounded nervous. He said that a series of strange explosions had been seen on the surface of Mars. The music came back on for a moment, but it didn't last. The announcer returned, more frantic this time. He claimed a giant flaming object had crashed into a farm in Grover's Mill, New Jersey. What followed was a series of live reports. Actors playing scientists and journalists described a horrifying scene. They spoke about a metal cylinder opening up. They described strange tentacled creatures crawling out. They spoke about heat rays turning people into ash. The actors were so good that they sounded like they were dying on air. They described the New York skyline falling into flames. Thousands of people didn't wait to hear the end. They didn't hear the parts where the station mentioned this was all a play based on a book by H.G. Wells. They just heard the first signal, the news of the crash, and their minds did the rest. In New Jersey, families wrapped wet towels around their faces to protect themselves from Martian gas. In New York, people crowded into churches to pray. In the South, people loaded shotguns and hid in their cellars. The noise in their heads was so loud that they couldn't see the reality right in front of them. Their streets were empty, their houses were safe, and no one was actually screaming outside. The War of the Worlds broadcast is one of the most famous examples of mass panic in history. But it wasn't just a prank gone wrong. It was a perfect look at how the human mind works when it doesn't have all the facts. When there is a gap in information, like a radio play that sounds like news, or a text message that sounds too short, the brain hates the emptiness. It wants to fill that gap. And because we are wired to survive, we usually fill that gap with the scariest thing we can imagine. The Hall of Mirrors. When Maya sat in her car, she was entering her own version of the War of the Worlds. She was experiencing what we call the Hall of Mirrors. Imagine walking into a room full of mirrors. You see yourself, but you also see a version of yourself that is stretched out and tall. In another mirror, you look short and wide. In a third, your face looks twisted. If you stay in that room long enough, you might forget what you actually look like. You start to believe the distorted versions are the truth. In a relationship, overthinking works exactly like this. One small thought acts like the first mirror. Maya thought, Liam didn't use an emoji. That was a small distortion. But then that thought reflected into another mirror. He's losing interest. Then that one reflected into a bigger one. I'm not fun to be around. Pretty soon, she wasn't looking at the reality of a busy man sending a quick text while he finished work. She was looking at a hall of mirrors where her entire relationship was falling apart. This is the noise of the mind. It is a collection of cognitive distortions. These are just fancy words for thinking mistakes. Our brains take a tiny piece of data and stretch it until it looks like a monster. The listeners in 1938 did the same thing. They heard a sound effect that was actually just a person tapping a microphone, but in their hall of mirrors, it became the sound of a Martian machine rising from the ground. They took a small first signal and built a whole apocalypse around it. The biology of the panic. Why does our brain do this? Why can't we just see a short text and think, oh, he must be busy? The answer goes back thousands of years. Our ancestors lived in a world where a rustle in the grass could be a tiger. If you thought it was just the wind and you were wrong, you died. If you thought it was a tiger and you were wrong, you just felt a little embarrassed, but you stayed alive. Our brains are built to assume the worst, because assuming the worst kept us from being eaten. In a relationship, being rejected feels like a tiger. To your brain, losing the person you love feels like a threat to your survival. When Liam sends a text that feels off, Maya's brain doesn't see words on a screen. It sees a rustle in the grass. It triggers a physical response. Her heart beats faster. Her breath gets shallow. This is her body getting ready to fight or run away. The problem is that you can't fight or run away from a text message. Since there is no physical tiger to deal with, the energy goes straight into your thoughts. You start emotional reasoning. This is the belief that because you feel a certain way, it must be true. I feel anxious, so he must be mad at me. I feel lonely, so she must be pulling away. I feel scared, so the Martians must be in New Jersey. This is the core of overthinking. We use our feelings as proof of facts. But feelings are not facts. Feelings are just the weather in your head. They change all the time, and they don't always tell the truth about what is happening outside. Maya's experiment. A few days after the pasta text, Maya decided she was tired of being a relationship detective. She was exhausted from spending her workdays trying to solve the mystery of Liam's moods. She felt like she was living in a constant state of emergency. She decided to try something new. She grabbed a notebook and drew a line down the middle of the page. On the left side, she wrote the facts. On the right side, she wrote the noise. She looked back at that Tuesday evening. The facts, Liam said, sounds good, see ya. He showed up for dinner on time. He kissed her when she walked in. He ate his pasta and told her about his day. The noise, he didn't use a heart emoji. He is bored with me. He is going to break up with me soon. I am too much for him. When Maya saw it on paper, something shifted. The noise side was long and scary. The fact side was short and simple. She realized that the war of the worlds in her head had nothing to do with the man sitting across from her at the restaurant. While she was imagining the end of her world, he was just enjoying a bowl of noodles. This was Maya's first encounter with the anchor. An anchor is something heavy and solid that keeps a boat from drifting away in a storm. In your mind, an anchor is a fact. It is something you can see, touch, or prove. When the hall of mirrors starts to spin, you have to reach for the anchor. You have to ask yourself, what do I know for sure right now? Maya started to realize that her overthinking wasn't a sign that she was crazy. It was just her brain trying to protect her. But it was protecting her from a threat that wasn't there. She was treating a radio play like a real invasion. The first signal. To stop the noise, you have to catch the first signal. This is the very first thought that starts the spin. For the people in 1938, the first signal was the music stopping. For Maya, it was the missing emoji. For you, it might be a partner's tone of voice, a long pause in a conversation, or a post on social media. The first signal is usually neutral. It isn't good or bad, it's just a piece of information. But the overthinking brain is like a dry forest. One tiny spark, the first signal, can start a massive fire. If you can catch that spark before it spreads, you can stay in reality. You can say to yourself, I noticed he didn't say goodbye when he left for work. That is the signal. My brain wants to turn this into a story about how he's leaving me. But the fact is, he was running late for a meeting. Catching the signal requires you to be a witness to your own mind. You have to stop being the person running from the Martians and start being the person who says, wait, why is the announcer's voice sounding so much like an actor I saw last week? The cost of the noise. Overthinking doesn't just make us feel bad. It actually changes the way we act. When the people in 1938 thought the world was ending, they blocked the highways. They jammed the police phone lines. They caused real accidents because of a fake threat. In the same way, overthinking causes real damage to healthy relationships. If Maya believes Liam is pulling away, she might act differently when she sees him. She might be quiet and cold to protect herself. Or she might be clingy and ask, are we okay? 10 times in an hour. This behavior creates a new problem. Liam, who was perfectly happy, might start to feel confused or pushed away by Maya's behavior. This is the great irony of overthinking. We are so afraid of losing the person we love that we act in ways that actually drive them away. We create the very invasion we are trying to prevent. The noise in our heads becomes a wall between us and our partner. We stop connecting with the real person and start arguing with the version of them we've created in our hall of mirrors. Building the anchor. To get out of the hall of mirrors, you need a plan. You can't just tell yourself to stop thinking. That's like telling a fire to stop being hot. Instead, you have to give your brain a different job. You have to move from the world of possibility, what if, to the world of probability, what is likely. Spot the signal. Notice the exact moment your mood changes. What happened right before you felt that pit in your stomach? Was it a text? A look? A silence? Name the noise, give the overthinking a name. Maya started calling hers the Martian news. When she felt herself spinning, she would say, oh, the Martian news is on again. This helped her realize the thoughts weren't her, they were just a program running in the background. Check the facts, ask yourself, what would a video camera see? A video camera doesn't see disinterest. It just sees a man typing 3 words. A video camera doesn't see abandonment. It just sees a woman sitting in a car. Drop the anchor, find one thing you know is true. He told me he loves me this morning. We have plans on Saturday. He is currently at his job, where he is very busy. Maya practiced this for a week. It wasn't easy. Her brain kept trying to change the channel back to the War of the Worlds. It felt safer to worry than to trust. But every time she caught a first signal and dropped her anchor, the buzzing noise in her head got a little quieter. She began to see that her relationship wasn't a puzzle she had to solve. It was a person she had to be with. The quiet landing. The War of the Worlds broadcast eventually ended. Orson Welles, the man behind the play, stepped out of character at the very end. He told the audience that it was all a joke. He compared it to dressing up in a sheet and jumping out from behind a bush to say, boo. The panic died down. People went home. They realized the sky wasn't falling. The Martians were just sound effects made by hitting a bucket of water with a shovel. In your relationship, most of the things you worry about are just sound effects. They are the noise created by a brain that is trying too hard to keep you safe. You don't have to live in a state of emergency. You can learn to hear the music without fearing the news bulletin. Maya realized that she had a choice. She could spend her life looking for Martians, or she could step out of the car and walk into the restaurant. She could stay in the hall of mirrors, or she could look at the real man waiting for her at the table. The noise might never go away completely. You might always have a brain that looks for the tiger in the grass. But you don't have to follow the noise. You can acknowledge the signal, drop your anchor, and stay right where you are, in the present moment, where things are usually much calmer than they seem. As Maya walked into the pasta place, she saw Liam. He waved at her and pulled out a chair. He looked tired, but he smiled when he saw her. "Hey," he said. "Sorry if my text was short. My boss was standing right over my shoulder while I was trying to finish that report." Maya felt a final wave of the noise disappear. The Martians weren't coming. The world wasn't ending. It was just a Tuesday, and she was exactly where she needed to be. She sat down, picked up a menu, and let the silence be exactly what it was, a quiet moment between two people. Chapter 2: Why do we invent problems that don't exist? If you stand on the banks of the Danube River today, near the city of Vienna, you see a peaceful landscape. People jog along the water. Coffee shops serve warm cake. The river looks like a blue ribbon under the sun. It is a place of rest. In the year 170 AD, this same stretch of land was a nightmare. It was the edge of the Roman Empire, a place of mud, freezing rain, and constant blood. The air was thick with the smoke of campfires and the smell of sickness. A terrible disease called the Antonine Plague was killing thousands of people every day. On the other side of the river, giant armies were waiting to attack. Inside a small, drafty tent sat a man named Marcus Aurelius. He was the emperor of Rome, the most powerful person on earth. But at that moment, he was just a tired man with a cough and a heavy heart. He had lost several children to illness. His friends were dying. His soldiers were scared. His own body was failing him. Every person around him was panicking. They were telling stories about the end of the world. They were imagining every possible disaster. If Marcus had let his mind run wild, he would have been paralyzed by fear. He was standing in a giant hall of mirrors, where every shadow looked like a monster and every bad thought felt like a fact. Instead of panicking, Marcus picked up a pen. He began to write notes to himself. These notes were never meant to be a book, but they became one of the most famous guides to the human mind ever written. He called it Meditations. He wrote these notes to stop himself from overthinking. He knew that the things happening outside his tent, the war, the plague, the cold, were hard. But he also knew that the stories his mind told him about those things were much worse. He realized that we don't just suffer from what happens to us. We suffer from the problems we invent in our own heads. The old brain in a new world. To understand why we invent problems, we have to look at how our brains were built. Your brain is not a computer designed to make you happy. It is a survival machine designed to keep you alive. A long time ago, humans lived in a world where everything was trying to eat them. If a bush rustled, the person who thought, "It's probably just the wind," didn't live very long. The person who thought, "It's a tiger," and ran away was the one who survived and had children. This created something called negativity bias. It means our brains are hardwired to look for the worst-case scenario. We are the grandchildren of the most anxious people in history. We have a tiger spotter inside our heads that never sleeps. The problem is that we don't live in the jungle anymore. We don't have to worry about tigers jumping out of the bushes. Instead, we have social tigers. In our world, being rejected by the person we love feels just as dangerous as being eaten by a wild animal. When your partner doesn't text you back, your brain reacts as if you are being kicked out of the tribe. In ancient times, being kicked out of the tribe meant you would die in the woods alone. So your brain sends out a red alert. It starts spinning what-if stories to try to protect you. What if they are bored of me? What if they found someone better? What if they saw that embarrassing thing I did, and now they think I'm weird? These aren't facts. They are just the tiger spotter doing its job. The brain is trying to solve a problem that hasn't even happened yet.